So apparently, it's a really cool thing to tag people. There's been tags going around, like those terrible skin tags that hang on certain parts of your body. Sometimes, your underarm, it just flaps there, and you cut it off, but it then bleeds out, and it just gets ugly. So yeah, new tag. Stay tuned. What's going on, YouTube? I'm Joshua, as always, and this channel that you're currently watching is our channel, ScentSense. To all the loyal subscribers and the new people who are joining each and every day, you know what? Thank you so much for coming on this ride. And to all you new people who are on the fence and you're chewing that long piece of hay and you're trying to decide, what am I gonna do? Should I stick around? I mean, is there a lot to offer here? Well, when we're done, I'm gonna take you on down to that old dirt road and we're gonna ride till we can't no more. Today we'll be talking about a brand new tag series that I'm starting. Yes, I know for the most part people are exhausted ad nauseum with these tags videos, but my idea with this tag video is to make something that would be fun for every reviewer to do and also wouldn't alienate people who are maybe more into niche or wouldn't cause people who are into more niche to alienate other people and think this is lame. It's gonna be something that I think will hit close to home with every fragrance reviewer. The premise of this video is your foundational 5 fragrances. 5 fragrances that started it all for you. It doesn't have to be the very first fragrance. It doesn't have to be the very last fragrance you've worn. It needs to be 5 fragrances that literally founded the foundation of you becoming a fraghead. Fraghead, definition. A fraghead is somebody who is just obsessed with fragrances, someone who collects fragrances, someone who is passionate about the art of fragrance, and someone who just all around loves to smell good. So it's probably you. So I'm gonna challenge people at the end of the video, and I'm gonna list their names, to pick 5 fragrances that really just started it all for them. But before we do that, let's get into my 5 and 1 honorable mention. So the honorable mention is because I don't have an original bottle, aka the very founding father of this line. I only have the much better younger brother, better looking brother. Don't you? The younger brother, man, always gets the girls. Older brother gets, screwed. Sucks. Sucks for you older brothers. I'm an only child. The fragrance I'm talking about was built upon the greatest selling fragrance of all time. The fragrance that I have is Acqua di Gio Profumo Special Blend, but the fragrance I'm gonna talk about is Acqua di Gio. Acqua di Gio, Gio, panty dropper, liquid panty dropper. It's been called many, many things, many, many times by many, many different people. But the result has always been the same. It is a pleasant, people-pleasing scent. Everyone knows it when they smell it, and the people who don't know it think you will smell fantastic. It's something that has worked and has stood the test of time, hence why it still sells, while you still have flankers coming out. And I think, in my opinion, when it comes to the Profumo line, the Profumo and Profumo Special Blend, they've only increased or made better the attractiveness of the fragrance. So for my honorable mention, I pay homage to the king of all fresh scents, Mr. Acqua di Gio. Acqua di Gio, if that's how you say it. Coming up next is the very first fragrance that I ever purchased myself. It came in a tin can, and no, we're not talking about the one with the gigantic bulge. We're talking about the first fragrance to make pineapple cool, which a lot of people didn't know that it was in here. To be honest, I didn't know either, because I wasn't into fragrances at the time. Didn't care less about notes. Don't care what ingredients were in my cereal, just that they taste good. You know what I mean? The fragrance we're talking about is none other than Curve. Listen, this doesn't need any introduction. This was worn by every single kid in high school. When I was in high school, everyone had on a pair of either Birkenstocks or Doc Marten boots for you youngins. Those were cool at the time. Maybe like a shell necklace, a fossil watch. You were really cool if you had all that going for you at that time. And this was the fragrance that got you there. It's pleasant, it's very, very easy to wear. And of course, it started the whole pineapple craze. This has got a little more of a soapier vibe. It doesn't go towards the same kind of vibe as a Ventus did. But this is just a great, great introductory pineapple fragrance. And honestly, I think it really works now. I think it can make a comeback. I think kids of all ages, especially high school kids and college kids, could really rock this. So, another fragrance that took me down memory lane, a founding 5 fragrance, Curve by Liz Claiborne. Next up is a bottle that I recently acquired because I hadn't had one in many, many years. This one right here is probably the most pleasant, easy to wear, neutral, Not hard to understand, just good smelling, easygoing fragrance. That is Tommy by Tommy. The person to talk about this the most was probably Henry Valley from Classy Scents. He really enjoys this one, and so do I. Now, you can see there's not a lot of juice in this. I bought this as a partial off of my buddy Jacob Bryant, but I don't have a cap because he's lame and he lost the cap. But this one right here definitely was worn a lot in my neck of the woods in high school, mainly because it's a warmer climate and it just really works and it's a rock star. This fragrance was launched in 1995. I was only 10 years old at the time this came out, but alas, I definitely got a bottle later on in life, and of course, much later on in life, shut up, I got this bad boy. The main players in this fragrance are a bunch of citruses. You're gonna get bergamot, you're gonna get Granny Smith apple, you're gonna get some orange in here, lots and lots of juicy citrus. You're also gonna pick up a slight bit of mint, but it's very mellow. It sits in the background, kind of just says, hey buddy, I'm here. And then you're also gonna get some lavender. I pick up a lot of the lavender in this, but it's not kind of like a Reflection Man lavender, which makes you feel like, hello, my name is Scott, and I wear Reflection Man. You're gonna get a relaxing lavender that blends perfectly with the fruity notes and makes this an all-purpose, super pleasing fragrance. So another one of my founding fragrances, another fragrance that has definitely stood the test of time, and I think you should definitely check out because it is dirt cheap, Tommy by Tommy Hilfiger. Next up is a fragrance that I got my senior year in high school. It had just come out. It was pretty much a hot commodity. It was really touted. It was one that everybody was trying to buy. It was super blue, super fresh, and probably started off the blue craze. None other than Polo Blue by Ralph Lauren. Cucumber, cantaloupe, and suede. Yes, I read that right off of Fragrantica. I'm sure none of you knew those notes. But alas, that's where I got it from. Suede gives it an air of sophistication, but it's not too sophisticated. The cucumber, the cantaloupe, and the other fruity notes tend to give this more of a playful side. This is definitely something that a younger guy can pull off, but an older guy can use as a signature scent. This is probably one of the most universal blue fragrances on the market, and it just really worked at the time. I thought I was such a grown man by wearing this. My dad wore Polo Green. I thought that was a little too grown. I feel like this was like the answer to Polo Green being the king back then. This was their new throne sitter. So anyway, if you haven't smelled it, I'm sure you live under a rock, and if you haven't smelled it, you should definitely smell it because it's good, it's clean, and it's easy to wear, and I'm sure you can get it cheap on discounters. Anyway, enough rambling, Polo Blue. So next up was the first fragrance that I wore that I thought made me feel sexy. Yes, cliche, I know, but you know what? It works. Very Sexy for Him by Victoria's Secret. I remember when this first came out and people were literally thinking this was the greatest thing they have ever smelled. This is a crazy blend that actually works. It's got cinnamon, it's got woods, it's got vetiver, and a crap ton of fruity notes. It doesn't seem like it would work the way it does, but to me it's just a perfect blend. And it's got this sexy, I won't say deviant, but maybe mischievous smell to it. It smells like a playboy would wear this, and at the time that I wore this, I felt like I was a playboy, but I wasn't. But you know what? It helped me to feel that way. This was one of the cooler bottles that came out too. I really like the way it looks, and it actually is made to do this, which I didn't know until someone that worked there told me that. It's kind of like to make it display, so the cap becomes the bottom, which I think is really cool and different when it comes to fragrance bottles because, let's just face it, there's not a whole lot they can do now to be unique. So if you're looking for something that's woodsy and it has a fruity zest to it with a little bit of cinnamon that's alluring, seductive, and unique, then you should definitely check out Very Sexy for Him. Last but not least is my most worn fragrance when I was in high school. Definitely wore it after high school. Girls that I dated thought I smelled fantastic. I definitely stood out. I didn't smell like everyone else wearing Curve, Lucky You, Aqua de Jo, all of those fragrances. I definitely stood out. Then everybody in my high school started wearing it. But before they did, I was the first guy. Fragrance we're talking about is a zesty orange, and some people call synthetic mess. It's from the house of Clinique. Yes, the makeup makers. Clinique's Happy for Men. This fragrance made #1 on my spring top 10 list, which I'll link up here. This is probably one of my favorite fragrances of all time. It definitely started it all for me. This is the one that really gave me the oomph to want to start maybe getting more than 1 to 2 fragrances. This is when I really was like, man, this is so different to me. Now, a lot of people are gonna say, oh man, it's just a synthetic fragrance, your nose is so basic. At the time, man, all I knew was I wanted to smell good and I want girls to think I smell good. And the only thing that was out there at the time was Lamel, Geo. These were things that everyone was wearing, and I just wanted to be slightly unique. And yes, I know it's synthetic, yes, I know it's cheap, but at the end of the day, I stood out and it was fresh and it was inviting, and it was people pleasing, and it was easygoing, and it really matched my personality. This is a perfect orange fragrance if you're looking for something that's cheap, that's going to work, that's going to be great for summertime, do well in spring and fall. Not a big winter fragrance, something you may have to reapply. This is something you should add to your arsenal if you don't have it. It's so cheap, it makes no sense not to own it in my personal opinion. Coming in at the final spot, the king of my founding 5 fragrances, the king of the throne, my favorite fragrance that started all for me is Clinique's Happy for Men. So that's it. I would like to hear other people's opinion on this, and I hope it makes the rounds to people who would not do this because they would say, oh, well, you know, I'd rather just eat pie. But you know what? At the end of the day, this is about what is important to you about these fragrances. You don't have to do this to try to appeal to the masses. Just do it to appeal to people who watch you and let them know what you really like. Because I'm sure if you do it, they may just be very receptive to it. The people that I am going to tag are Ashton over at the channel GENTS. I'm sure it'll be riddled with Gucci fragrances. I'm sure there'll be some Dracar Noir in there. But Ashton, I really look forward to your response. What would a tag video be without a UK presence, without someone from an international land from afar? My buddy across the pond, Mr. Chris over at the channel FRAGMENTAL. Chris talks a lot about fragrances that are really important to him now, but I would be really intrigued to know what fragrances Chris, maybe rocked in high school, college age, what he wore when he first met his wife. So Chris, I look forward to your response. Next up is my buddy over at the channel Big Beard Business, Buck. I want to hear what you have to say, sir, because I know for darn sure you was not rocking Killing in high school. I'm sure you weren't wearing as much of the fragrances that are in your collection now. I'm sure your palette has grown, but I'd really like to see what you would choose from this list. I'm sure Burberry Touch will be in it, but at the end of the day, I really want to know what else is on this list. I'm tagging a lot of people, so just deal with it. Next up is a guy who repeatedly requests to not be tagged and gets frustrated and talks about not wanting to be tagged. But I've tagged him multiple times and he's never responded. And you know what, Cuba? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, and I want to hear your response because this one's unique and this one you could definitely attest to because I bet everyone wants to know, what did Cubano wear when he first started wearing fragrances? Back in the Gap when he had his shirt unbuttoned with the neck meat coming out and the Cuban links hanging up in the chest hair, walking around with the big fancy sunglasses, picking up the girls. I'd love to hear what you wore, sir. What are your 5 foundational fragrances? And I gotta keep spreading the love around, so I'm gonna tag a person from the NYC crew, somebody who I look up to as a friend who's always nice and polite and adds positivity to the fragrance community. Sometimes he gets his panties in a wad, and sometimes he can be a little aggressive, but at the end of the day, he's about love for the most part. And I love the guy to death, Mr. Carlos at the channel Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. You are tagged, even though you never tagged me. You just don't do it, buddy. But I love you anyway. Man, there's been a bunch of tags, but you know what? I'd be remiss without tagging some people from the great country of Canada. So I would like to tip my hat to America's stylish hat, that is Canada, and tag 2 reviewers. Yes, 2 reviewers from the country of Canada. The first one I'm gonna tag is Mr. Chad over at the channel A Gentleman's Journey. He's a cranky, mean, just aggressive Canuck that I love to death because at the end of the day, beneath that a-hole exterior is a great, great guy. And Chad, I really want to hear about this because I remember watching videos from your channel back in the day when you were, a slim young chap with a little more, foliage on the top, and I would really love to hear what you have to say about fragrances you wore back then. And last but not least is an OG from the fragrance reviewing community, a guy who kind of was part of starting it all. Yes, he has very lengthy videos, and I'm sure this one will be about 22.67 minutes, of course. I'm sure you figured it out by now, a guy with a collection unlike anybody else, a guy with a gigantic beard that seems to continue to be growing. usually kept clean, usually kept close to the face, but alas, it's growing bigger and bigger by the day. My buddy over at the channel Robes08, Mark, I challenge you. I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm sure you're gonna have grass in it, but at the end of the day, I want to hear about it. So you, sir, have also been tagged. Now that all those tags are out the way, which was probably about as long as the actual video was, I'd like to know what you have to say about it. Let's start a discussion. Leave a comment in the comment section below. What are fragrances that were the founding fragrances for you? The fragrances that started it all, the fragrances that you reminisce about, you may not own anymore, but they were the ones that really got it started. Are any of the fragrances that I mentioned ones that started for you? Are those ones that you just simply hated and you felt were like just a little too mainstream? Go ahead and leave a comment below. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. That way you can get more and more of my great content. And look, if you're not into subscribing in the channels and you don't want to subscribe into mine, it's cool, man, no problem, no sweat. If you are subscribed and you're subscribing now, go ahead and smash that notification bell. That way when my videos come out, you people will be the first to know. As my buddy Joshua always says, I love each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll smell you later. Peace!